All right. Hello and welcome to our Multiplying Impact series, From Personal to Powerful: How Parents Are Changing Autism Innovation. My name is Kate Russell. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. I'm going to go over just a few housekeeping items before we get started. So first, you can use the chat or the Q&A to engage. We would love to hear where you're joining from. If you would like to put a little something in the chat, just to introduce yourself, we'd love to know who's here. I'll be sharing a landing page shortly where you can find contact information for our panelists and their different organizations. So please do check that out. There's also a form in there for you to get more connected with Multiple, should you be interested in doing so. And we hope that you can stay for the entirety of the event, but if you can't, the recording will be shared at post-event to the email that you registered to. All right, we are thrilled to have three awesome panelists with us today: Dan Feshbach, Kathryn Morris, and Neda Amidi. They will introduce themselves shortly, and you will get to hear all about them throughout. Today, we just had our welcome. We'll go through this panel. We will leave about 15 minutes for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A function. I will also be monitoring the chat, but the Q&A is going to be the best way for you to reach us. And then we will do a brief closing. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome our panelists here to the screen and get us started. Awesome. We have Dan and Neda and Kathryn. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to start simply. So tell us a bit about yourself, not just your work, but your life. Where do you sit in this ecosystem, and what's your connection to autism innovation? Dan, since I think many here are familiar with you, we'll kick it off with you.
All right. Thank you. I'm excited about this session, and particularly inspired by Neda and Kathryn and the work they've done. But I'm the founder of Multiple. I'm the father of Feshbach, who is a limited speaker and learning to communicate through a letterboard. And he's my inspiration for everything I do.
Thank you, Dan. Kathryn.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathryn Morris, and most people, my introduction will be a little bit longer. Thank you, Dan, for including me and being the visionary dad, person, and entrepreneur and ecosystem builder that you are, and noticing the work that I'm trying to do. Most people know me from cold case and a few other things. And at one point, I was I was the lead of one of the biggest syndication television shows in the world. I flew on private jets selling the show. I was mentored by Jerry Bruckheimer, and I worked alongside legendary creatives such as Steven Spielberg and groundbreaking directors such as Mark Pellington, who's now on my board. So grateful. But the real story that I wasn't telling publicly for a long time was what was happening behind the scenes. I became a mom, and then I became a single mom to twin boys that were diagnosed on opposite ends of the autism spectrum with complex co-occurring medical conditions associated with autism. And that changed everything for me. And not because I stepped away from Holly, but because I stayed, but I stayed differently. I kept showing up, but now I was also doing IEP meetings and therapies and learning how to cook from scratch, because they couldn't eat the same way that others could. And I had to really just get down to basics. When it comes to tech, my dad was a Bible scholar. He was a PhD. He was a brilliant man. He likely was on the spectrum himself. In fact, he brought home a computer back in 1976, and we were actually on the internet back when I was 6 years old. He was wired differently, and so were we. But he also didn't have the executive functioning skills to pay an electric bill. So I know what it is to have everything and also to have nothing. So that perspective changed me. And so when the systems didn't work for my kids or for me, I stopped waiting for ones to appear. So in some very isolating, dark hours when I was just trying to figure things out, and people started to text me and to ask me why my kids started to start feeling better and doing better with my resources and information, I created Savants, a lifestyle brand and cultural platform for misfits makers and mind benders on and off the spectrum. And it's not a charity, it's not a rebrand, it's a home. And it's for people who have been underestimated in both worlds, for Hollywood, healthcare, tech, and parenting. It's where storytelling and culture collide and the next wave of solution begins, built by people who have lived it.
I love it. The misfits, mind benders, every time you say it, love it so much. It's wonderful. Thank you. And Neda, just tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for having me, and it's great to have gotten connected to Dan and Multiple through, I think, LinkedIn, and then to Kathryn as well, a fellow mom on this path together. So I'm just starting off with just being very grateful to be here. Hi, my name is Neda Amidi. I'm a mom first to two adventurous and joyful little girls, almost 5 and 3. And my connection to autism is personal. I'm a proud mom of a neurodivergent daughter. And I'm an early stage investor at Plug and Play, where we focus on pre-seed to Series A startups, investing in them and connecting them to customers. Right now, I am on a Power Pause, which is a great book that I'd recommend that focuses on what power pauses are and what they mean. But I'm on one to focus on my family. And I married my college sweetheart, who's my partner and pillar through it all, the past 9 years, but in particular, the past couple years with all the, waves that we've gone through in life. And all of these experiences have led me to create the Inclusion Project with one of my good friends, Sarah, which is a mom-led initiative that's focused on building community, hosting inclusive play groups, and creating a safe space for connection and education around autism in the Bay Area here in California.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm going to add that book to my cart, learn a little bit more about power pauses. It sounds incredible. So the four of us here, right, we've had some conversations before, and you've each talked a lot about parents, not just as caregivers, but as innovators, and also as an overlooked consumer group in autism tech. I know it's a big question, so we'll spend some time talking about it. But what do you think the world is missing when it comes to the power of parents, both to build and buy the solutions they need? Kathryn, I'll start with you.
What does it take? Could you say it? You said, what does it take to buy?
So I think just what's the world missing about the power of parents here, both in building the solutions we need and buying them as well?
Well, it's really about access. I mean, there's so much red tape, and so there's so much of a wait list. If we just have to cut through the wait list, the way it usually works is you're waiting to find out about the regional center, and you're just not having access. If you could get access, then maybe you could get it. The way it usually works is a mom will say, "Hey, does this work? Can I have a friend of a friend? Does it work? How much does it cost? Can I get it? If does it work or not?" If you could have a pathway to have access to it, or it could be approved by insurance, and what does technology mean to you? What does innovation mean to you? It sounds very expensive, innovation, technology. Everyone just wants to know, how can I get it? How can I get it from my child today?
Absolutely. And Dan, I know you sit a little bit on the other side of this as well, working with startups in this space, some of which are looking to parents. What are your thoughts on this?
I have way too many thoughts, so I'll try to keep them organized. So the first thing I think about is the time it takes for innovation to get to market. TeachTown We started it in 2000 and call it 2005, and it took 15 years to get to let's call it 50,000 students using the platform. It took when we sold it to Bain, it took them, a very short time to move from that number to 120,000 students in 3,000 school districts. But, the banging on the doors, the challenges that startup founders have, it drove me crazy. It got me depressed. It got me clinically depressed at a number of times. And I believe that going directly to families, having a product to go directly to families, to understand that, let's just say 5 million people with autism, two parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Let's just say that 4 or 5 of them are engaged. So now you got 25 million people. Now that's probably underestimated. Then you've got the frontline caregivers, which is an enormous number as well. So when you think about it, why are we depending on the gatekeepers anymore? Like, how can autism startups thrive by going directly to parents? Parents can bring it to the gatekeepers at their schools, in their clinics, who often take years to pilot projects before they'll ever use it, and on and on. So, like, I'm motivated by many things, including the pain I feel as a parent, how long it's taken my son to begin to communicate. And I truly believe that if I had started with families and did not work institutionally, I might have been self-sustaining earlier and less dependent on outside capital and the whims of the people that make those decisions.
Thank you, Dan. I see in the chat some people are agreeing with you here on this approach. So thanks to all who are contributing there. Neda, anything to add about, what do you think the world is missing when it comes to the power of parents to both build and buy the solutions they need, specifically in this space of autism tech?
Yeah, I think echoing what has already been said, and Dan was talking about in one of our chats about connecting to parents and in particular to moms in the mom group that we've created, really having access or being a part of these lived experiences is, I think, what's missing. A great example is, today with our ABA provider, who I believe is actually on the line, Serena at Empowered ABA, giving her a major plug here. She and I were working through a tantrum with my daughter, and we had to power through it. And in those moments, there's no, I don't know, tech that could maybe help us, but maybe there is. But really being close to those experiences that happen. Hi, Serena, in the chat. She's here. Is really what is necessary if you're looking to develop technology or looking to innovate. Deeply understanding your users' pain points and how you can address them by being in those moments and being in those groups somehow really could help. And we rely a lot on our providers, whether it's ABA, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. I could say we truly wouldn't be anywhere without them. And, I think getting somehow access to them as an innovator is important in order to get the real pain points. And, we're still at the toddler stages, and a lot of what we use is more grassroots and more, therapies and providers that do a lot of work in person. But I often saw a disconnect in the venture capital world as well, a disconnect between the product and the real world use cases. And I think that is true in the autism world as well. And, you know, some of the times I think the tech is like not so glamorous, you know, software that solves a very basic pain point. So, you know, these small things really matter as well. So, yeah, that would probably, you know, wrap up my thoughts when it comes to what's missing out there, but really getting deeply understanding of your users' pain points and solving a real pain point would be my recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely. I know many of the startups we come across and work with at Multiple have that deep connection to the work, right? And because of that can understand and build something that's really meaningful. Before we move on to our next question here, is there anything that sparked for any of you that you'd like to build on?
I just have one thought here, and that is that I've increasingly, we can all think of hundreds or multiples of features you can add to a product. I think I think products have to be a lot simpler, and in making them simple, that you surround yourself with a group of 10 moms, 20 moms, whatever, and work it to the point where they're using it on a regular basis, and if they're not, you got a red flag and you got to make adjustments. And so I think start small, don't start big, and start close in would be one thing that came to mind in listening to Neda and Kathryn.
Absolutely. I think what's really neat is we have three parents here at three different stages. So you heard toddler stage, school age, and then an adult. So we have very varied experiences here, but you've all been there as parents, right? Trying out new tools. So I'd love to hear, what's one autism related tool or resource that actually helped your family, and you can name it or not name it, and maybe an experience where it didn't work out and why, right? I think we really want to get to the root of what really sticks here. Dan, I'll shoot it over to you first. We'll start with the adult. You've had the most experience in this space.
Wow. Well, it's not yet digital, so it's a passion of mine, and it's augmentative communication, specifically using a letterboard to communicate. A letterboard, if people don't know what they are, looks like a large alphabet stencil, and my son points at letters, spells very complex things out now. It didn't start that way. And an area that, I have a stealth project going on my own, is really to create a platform to scale that. It's right now very homegrown. And the people working on it are passionate and great, but it takes heroic efforts to actually do it in your own family, and like that has got to change.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. Kathryn, how about you?
Well, let's go back to, I love what Neda was saying about the pain point. What's something that is not talked about is the shame and the pain point. There is so much shame that goes on with the moms and the parents and the grandparents and within the family. It literally puts a big divide about screens, iPads. What are you doing? How much screen time? And, I've been there. But, that speech app, like a speech app that we had for my son Rocco, who literally was just sitting in the corner with that one speech app, that baby signing app. That speech app was his way of downloading. He began to learn his phonics. He began to learn language. He was not speaking at the time. Then he started to switch over to Mandarin and Russian. He was not saying words yet. And when he did begin to speak, when the speech finally came, he had been downloading all that time. Now, some technology that I wish that I had was, Florio. when I stumbled upon the Florio booth at the Autism Investment Summit, and I saw that technology, and I said, oh, wow, I could have used this a few years ago, because we were never able to eat outside because my son did not understand the street. I already spent private funds to hire a private ABA therapist while I was on, waiting on a wait list forever, just so we could attempt to go out to eat a meal, so we could learn and work on that. And that, that's just too long. I mean, I had the resources. It's just too long. I had two. And, with technology that's coming, every single one of your demo days, every one of, to have a personal conversation with David Ruttenberg about PBX. My son has the same seizures. Wearables. If you can take care of the mom problem, if the mom can have her mental health, she can wear the stress, and the cortisol level is through the roof, because she's got the kid 24/7. She might have a couple of hours of ABA, but she's got that kid 24/7, and the fathers also need a space to, both sets of parents. But this is where I feel like we've got to bridge the gap with access. If parents could use it too, they're going to do the research and develop it themselves before they try it on their kid. Access, early access, removing the shame about technology, because if it works, it works. If it's going to give more independence a little bit, and if it's going to be something that they could afford, as opposed to a family member saying, here's another book about autism, and let me give you a bunch of unsolicited advice and judgment. There's plenty of that.
Yes. Thank you, Kathryn. I love how real you are, right? And that's
I got to keep it real.
Unity, and finding there's people who get it and who understand. So thank you for sharing. Neda, anything to add here?
Yeah, I love first all the activity on the chat. I was gonna kind of highlight that, and I find that in these different gatherings online and in person, people in this space are just so interactive. So I just wanted to give major shout out to the audience for being so engaged and commenting on what we're all saying in the chat. But also commenting on what Kathryn and Dan have shared. I know Dan, with the letterboard, sometimes we love documentaries, but sometimes we don't. But there was one with Michaela's voice around letterboards. That was a 23-minute documentary that I thought captured, letterboards in a way that I think for everybody to understand. And it was very short and to the point. So I would just maybe give a little shout out for that documentary. And I think Multiple's platform around being able to like get a glimpse into the startups in the space. Like I remember our first conversation, I couldn't like stop taking notes. Everything that Dan said, I was like writing down or, writing down in here. And so, parents are hungry for tech and for solutions that are out there. And with, Kathryn and what you said around safety, I know we were texting over the weekend. I was in Santa Monica, not too far away from her, but she was traveling. And we were just talking about how much our kids love the ocean and how like safety with the ocean, is not something that they're super cautious of. And so, there's some things that are real life problems that aren't tech as well. And I'm just, again, grateful to be with you guys on this Zoom, but on this path. And now I'll go into the things that worked and didn't work for us. Kathryn, did you want to say something? I wanted to, okay.
Was it? Yeah, no, I'm grateful. Well, just to mirror, first of all, I'm just a text away, and I'm so grateful to have you now as a mom friend. And that's really how it works. It's so quick. It's like, hey, you know, we grab this picture, but we know the story behind it. And that's what goes on social media, you know, TikTok, Instagram. These moms have a whole mom culture going on. And that's what happens. There's an instant new lifestyle change, there's a new culture change. And it doesn't matter, Neda being, you know, plug and play, it doesn't matter. Now we know each other and we understand. And that understanding needs to happen in a practical way in the marketplace, in the culture, in the community, in neuro inclusion. You know, we could do walkathons all day long, but we have to solve some problems here. So I'm just a text away, Neda. Go ahead.
So true. Love it. And yeah, I think, you know, things that have worked for us, given that we're at the, you know, toddler stage, you know, I was a bit hesitant at first, but once we got on board with a AAC device, it's been a game changer for us. And we, you know, went for something that's more streamlined, and like mainstream, not streamlined, mainstream, Proloco to go. And for us, it's been intuitive, easy for us as parents to program and customize and change as we've needed. And it's really accelerated my daughter's language development. So that's one that's working. One that is in progress is Reimbursify. I've used it just recently and waiting on the claims being processed, and they're an app that's used for submitting out-of-network super bills. If your insurance requires you to submit like one by one like sessions, they kind of like automate it and make it a lot easier. So I've tested it out with one super bill and waiting to see how long it takes and how automated it truly is. So that's one that's in progress. And then one that didn't work out, and not because of the solution or the technology, but because I think my daughter was too young at the time, was the QT robot by Lux AI. It's a cute little robot that's like the size of back then my 2-year-old who's almost 3. And it has like a cute little face with like a screen, and it teaches a lot around social skills, emotions, kind of do's and don'ts, and can really work well with your providers. And my daughter was terrified of it. Like as soon as the thing like blinked its eyes and kind of smiled and said something, she was really scared, and she would just sign like all done. And so that was something that we had to wrap up and put away and maybe try again when she's a little bit older. But those are kind of the 3. And then Kathryn gave a really good plug for Florio, but I also had Florio written down because I actually met VJ, the founder, years ago before I became a parent in this space in Cleveland at the Cleveland Clinic. And I always loved what they were doing just as an investor. And I think now see the use cases a lot as a parent. So I actually have a call this week with VJ to learn more as a parent. So kind of coming full circle. And then lastly, beyond tools, I'm really encouraged about the accelerators that are investing in this space, like Multiple. I've also spoken to Vanderbilt University about their Autism Innovation Hub. And these are just 2 that I know about and I'm involved with, but it just gives me a lot of hope as an investor that there are so many parent and child-led accelerators and venture capitalists and investors out there that are working on solutions that will come to market soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so interesting to hear. And really, as you said, Neda, the chat is just amazing. We're keeping up as we can with all the things that are going in here. And thank you for sharing your stories. We will certainly be reviewing and addressing some of these too as we continue our conversation. One thing John actually put in the chat, it's one of Dan's famous phrases here. He often says, we need to move at the speed of families. And in previous conversations, Kathryn and Neda, we've talked about this, and it's a phrase that resonates with both of you. So I'd love to hear your perspectives on, why does innovation move so slowly when parents clearly have this appetite and they're moving so quickly? Dan, I'll start with you since you coined the phrase. We have you on mute, Dan. I'll have to have you come up here.
Yeah, don't get me started. It could be a long monologue, but it's been there from the beginning. Time is our enemy as parents. Time is the enemy. And so it's so frustrating as a parent. I'm sure everybody will, in this audience, that has an autistic child or a neurodivergent child, maybe with ADHD, and you watch the pace of the system and how, when I was CEO of TeachTown, how long it took to get a pilot going, and the clinical the RTC randomly controlled clinical trial that we did with the LA school district held no water anywhere else. So and so working at the speed of families means, like, literally, to me, it's everything. It's like, I am tired of waiting. I think we're all tired of waiting. And, we have to figure out how to do the big, I'm going to call them RX innovations, and at the same time be able to do over the counter. And sometimes maybe those RX innovations like Florio can also be offered over the counter. And so offering over the counter and going directly to families. And in the chat, one person said, aren't the social media giants the same gatekeepers as what you're dealing with? And my answer is Facebook groups. Literally. Like, you don't need to spend $1 gazillion on this. You can, and I'm no expert in social media, and I'm no expert really in marketing to families other than like my instincts and what I'm doing today. But so I guess the big takeaway for me is get close to families as quickly as possible when you're building your idea. Like, moms should be able to use it and not feel overwhelmed by it. And moms should be your primary target at the beginning, or that frontline caregiver, that frontline professional. And like, going to the school district administration, to me, is a waste of time. Slack did it the right way. Slack went to their end users first and then penetrated the large corporations. And I think we need to take a page out of that playbook in a big way.
Thanks, Dan. Kathryn, I see you nodding along, and I know you talked a bit about access earlier, but what would you like to add to this?
All right, Dan, you're just so cool. You just inspire me so much, and you're just so humble. It's just, working in Hollywood, they say we need a unicorn before lunch, and someone says, can I leave? I'll have it. Let me go. Can I go to the store now? Like, they will get a unicorn by lunch. So when I needed solutions for my kids, I said, I'm not going to sit around and wait. By the time they say we're ready to have an hour, a year and a half, hi, I'm calling you for your parent training. Are you kidding me? I'm like, are you kidding me? Parent training? And like, I've already called 10 people. I've called Lisa Ackerman from Taka. I've got 5 moms. It's sort of like, this founder, Courtney Moore from The Missing Piece. She's told me about huge Facebook groups. I mean, we're friends. Moms solve problems themselves on TikTok, on Instagram. These moms are going rogue to solve their problems, and they are your audience, and they are your R&D, and they're right there, and it's not like we're trying to sell them something. They really need to be connected right away, because they're all in a race to have their kid get independent. I mean, they want to be able to say, hey, can we ever go near the ocean? Because I'm afraid that my child's going to elope. My child's going to elope. I mean, I've had 5 locks on my house. I've done that. I've had to call the school and say, I need to make sure that you support me so that he won't elope to the curb when you let him out of the after school program. Can you support me with that? They're like, oh, the after school program ends at this time. He's not my responsibility. I'm saying, yes, but he is. I have 2. You know, we're on our own. We're on our own. So we do have to move at the speed of families. So that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, and meeting families where they are, like you're saying, right? They're on social media, they're in the school pickup line, right? You have to find families where they are. Neda, what do you think about this? Why does innovation move so slowly when families are moving so fast? Or anything else that you might want to build upon with Dan and Kathryn?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, and this is something that like now I see as a parent, that the speed of families really resonates with me because when you're in it, like everything feels urgent, you know, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, to get your child whatever they need, whether it's for communication, whether it's for, you know, regulation and you know, stemming or whatever, you know, you may be having that's going on in that moment. And nothing else will matter in that moment. And so I think, you know, when you are in a parent's shoes, you just move in a different speed and a different cycle. And things just change like every day or every hour or, you know, every few days. So the cycles that you move at are a lot faster, but also being on the investor side and the innovation world, I know that funding takes time. There's regulatory hurdles. You know, if you're a device and you have to go through FDA clearance and, you know, whatnot, you know, those things take time. And I think right now there's that lack of connection between what families really need and what's happening in the market that's kind of outside of the control of the parents and even sometimes the founders. Yeah, but really the truth is like, you know, both sides kind of need to move at some pace that, you know, technology can come to market and help us, help kind of build for us what is needed and fill in that gap. But you know, we're just moving at 2 different speeds because one is like living in it and one is trying to bring a product to market, and that just takes a lot longer.
Absolutely. And then I'm actually going to come right back to you because I think you're on a roll and have a really unique perspective with this next topic is, you know, what is one thing that founders or investors, funders could do differently starting now to get solutions into homes sooner and at the right price point?
Yeah, I mean, Dan was asking if he could come to our mom's night out. It's once a month. It's every like second Wednesday of the month. And I think, you know, it's something that I would love to ask the group, but having, you know, technology providers and startups join those groups and get in the room and listen and see what are the pain points that these parents are sharing in these small communities, and to iterate based on what they're hearing. And really build something that's a must have, not a nice to have. That would be my recommendation.
I love that. Thank you. Kathryn, what's your perspective here?
That's such a great question. You know, I really just feel like there needs to be the mom and dad culture needs to be addressed. You know, I went to the Autism Investment Summit and I met all of these ABA, all of these big bosses, and a lot of them didn't know what an IEP was. And they said, well, if we what could we do to get the parent participation? what could we do about that? And I said, well, and they said, and the iPads keep getting broken. Why is that? I said, because it's the preferred activity. And because you have a BCBA coming in and telling the parent how to behave and what to do, but you're not dealing with the family. You're not actually dealing with the mother and the father and the stress. And you know, you and I have talked about this before, Kate, coming from your OT background. How many OTs sessions start talking about with the OT, but end up in a puddle of tears where the mom is talking to you about her personal breakdown. And so we have to address the whole family. There really is the culture, which is what I'm doing with the Savants. I mean, is there anything more besides Love on the Spectrum? It's a phenomenal show, but is there more than Love on the Spectrum? There's so many stories. I want to know the story of Dan and Reed. I want to know this. I want to know the stories. I want to know the full story. These are hidden stories that really are the whole picture behind the products, behind, you know, like, for example, like Jack, of Neuropool. He's my son grown up. You know, he's one of my children. And every mom wants to know that their kid is going to be okay. We want to know, will my child grow up? Will my child be independent? That's all they want. So we have to get in there. And that's what they want to know.
Absolutely. Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, speaking of shows and feeling that your child is gonna be okay, like for me, Attorney Woo was like the show because there's so many similarities to my daughter. And yeah, I think, everyone kind of sees their own child sometimes in these and just seeing that they are, okay. And just something that's being said in the chat, sorry that I'm like interrupting so much, but I was originally moderating this panel, so I'm maybe a little bit feeling like dual roles here, going back. But I love what someone said about siblings and grandparents because, we are blessed to have that nearby as well. And I think neurotypical siblings sometimes are, our providers are amazing, but sometimes our neurotypical siblings can be like, the best therapists as well. And having grandparents and others around to support is a big part of the community and ecosystem and families.
I'd love to add one thing to that too, which is it is complicated for, I think, neurotypical children. I so admire, my daughter and her love for Reed, but she's had, and it shows up in the fact that she is signed up to take care of him when I pass and his mother passed. So that's amazing. At the same time, siblings need to live their lives, and it's a big burden. I see it all the time on the sibling members of the family. It's just really, it's a tough role to be a sibling, and yet they are so important. My daughter and son-in-law are so important to my son.
Absolutely. Thank you all for bringing the human side and the story side into all of this. And I think we even saw some of this in the chat, right? There's this push and pull between we have this amazing solution that could help families and families being like, we just want to connect, right? We don't want to be sold to, right? And I think there's this push and pull that we see on the multiple side in the accelerator, right? Of how do we get good tech to people who need it, while also acknowledging the complexity of all of this. So just thank you for bringing so much nuance to this conversation. We are going to go to Q&A soon. So if you have some questions you want to drop in the Q&A function, please do. But we're going to end with one last question for our panelists. I think you've heard it, right? This work is personal, it's important, and it's sometimes difficult. So what is your mantra that keeps you grounded and moving forward? Neda, I'll start with you. What's your mantra that keeps you going?
I just wanted to acknowledge and thank Dan for sharing, his perspective on siblings as well. I think, as you mentioned, Kate, like all of us are in a different stage, and I think about my 2-year-old being, in her 30s or 20s later on, and what the weight that Dan is feeling and what he's sharing. So just wanted to say thank you for sharing that as well. And with my mantra, faith for us has become a grounding part of our family values. And one prayer that I actually carry with me in my pocket and do share with others when they need it as well is the serenity prayer. And so I carry this around, and it has the prayer on the back. I think it's like a AA coin, but it doesn't have like the years. It's just like a serenity prayer on the back. But for those that may not be familiar, I'm sure many are familiar. I will just read it out and leave you with it. But it's God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.
Thank you, Neda. Dan, we'll go to you.
Wow, I love that. Um, I have just a very simple thing that I do. I don't really have one, I'll call it one place I go, but I do every day. As well, I wouldn't say every day. I meditate every day, but I think about the good things that happen to me every day, and usually starting. It could be at Multiple, which is so energizing. It could be with a startup founder that's so energizing. It could be a conversation I've had with Kathryn or Neda. It could be, just the gift of being healthy. So, I think about those things, but a lot. And I think everyone who's in this journey should have, their time to really be able to settle themselves, because if you're not settled, nobody around you will be settled.
Thank you, Dan. Kathryn, would love to hear your mantra.
So good. I'm thinking about this around the time when my kids the twins, they both just completely stopped sleeping. And I had a baby nurse who came back to help because she knew that it was not good. It was tough. And I just wasn't going to sleep. And she was really experienced lady. And I think she knew that I was going to be in it. And one night she said to me, she says, in my experience, you just have to remember that whatever phase that they're in as a child, as a baby, as a toddler, that whatever it is, that they're only going to be in that phase one time. So take it in for everything that it is, the rough part, the beauty part, every single ounce of it. And, with developmental delays or all of these words that come, I've never forgotten that, because milestones, the age of your child, when they tie their shoes, when they do, that all just disappears with autism. Like, you just let it go, so that when they do that thing, it is so much sweeter, because you've really been in the moment, in the process of getting there. And so there isn't a day that goes by. One of my boys, I remember I said, "Who's my magic?" And he said, when he began to speak, he said, I'm your magic." And yesterday, because he's in a magician class, he said he did a magic trick for me. I mean, that's a leap. And I'm taking in the entire process of that, every single moment of that. So that's taking it all in.
Yes. Well, thank you all. That was just so beautiful, all three of you. I appreciate your reflections and your insights. really everything from personal to business. We covered it all here today. So thank you for sharing yourself with everyone here. We do have a little bit of time and a few questions, so we'll continue the conversation, but just thank you for that. One question, and anyone can feel free to jump in, but how has having a child with autism changed you as an entrepreneur?
I'll jump in. So, wow. It has been such a tough journey. And I think, pre my son's diagnosis, I was a financial tech entrepreneur in the mortgage space and had built a successful company. And at that time, I don't think I was really deeply engaged in making a difference in the world. Things that we did, we did analytics to support, affordable housing, and we felt good about that. But, it's totally turned me inside out, and it made me, so appreciative of what I have, but also just, feeling feeling what other parents feel and using that as power, and using my sadness, but also my happiness, and realizing, look, we're only on the planet for so long. So why not go for the whole gold? Why settle for anything less than gold?
So beautiful. I want to give Dan a virtual hug.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
Dan, you are gold.
Thank you.
Kathryn or Neda, anything you want to add, or I'm happy to, we have a lot of questions.
I'll go. I'll just say that, one of the things about like the Savants and why I wanted to create it was that I think every woman that has a child like is still trying to get back to that girl that she was before the diagnosis, because she had this thing like, oh, I'm gonna have a child and everything's gonna be this way. But what she doesn't know yet is that she's going to be an improved version of herself if she really leans in, and she's still gonna be herself. She's still gonna have her coffee, and she's still gonna had a little fashion. She's still gonna like her great music. She will. Like, there is a place that can coexist, and if just the whole infrastructure would support her and the family and the father, the whole family unit, a little bit more. That's my intention. I know that it's changed me in that my children have taught me more than anything in the world by leaning in and really allowing them to teach me what is important.
Thank you, Kathryn. Neda, I see you came off mute here as well.
Yeah, no, so everyone has said it all so beautifully. I think for me, what has changed me is the ability to like truly be present and like tuned in. And sometimes when, your child may not have the words to be able to say things verbally, you really have to be tuned in to understand their wants and needs. And I think for me, being tuned into her and her needs and being present is something that I did not have that ability in this capacity before.
I
Absolutely.
love that.
Mhm.
All right, we'll take another. Or Dan, did you have something to add?
No, I'm good. I appreciate everybody's wonderful comments in the chat. It's just it's a turn on and energizing.
Absolutely. So, I'm curious and gravitating towards this question because Neda, you talked about the power pause and what you're doing, right? But somebody asked here in the chat, how do you keep focusing on innovation when at times life can throw you difficulties, or you feel you should be doing that over working on a project? How do you find the balance in your lives?
I think I want to take a screenshot of the chat because sometimes I hear the chat goes away, like you can't save it. I
It
want
will
to
save,
screenshot.
but yes, please do.
It does save. I love it. It's like
Great. I want
the chat will be my new mantra. Like I love it.
to.
Just read it every morning. But I think it comes and goes in waves, and you have waves where you have the time and you have like the, capacity to look at what is out there, and sometimes you don't. And so when you're on that wave where you can see what's out there, you kind of see what's out there. And when you don't, you don't. But I think something that, Kathryn said and something that Dan said that really stuck with me, is like the importance of, taking care of yourself. And you all said it so beautifully, and I like wrote it down somewhere, but now I can't find it because I scribble all over the place. But you both said something about like taking care of yourself, and when you do that, I think you may sometimes have that capacity and time to look for what's out there. But prioritizing yourself and not forgetting yourself is, I think, an important piece of it.
I had a hard time. I was afraid of if I pressed a button, I was going to mess up the Zoom. I just see that my mom is in the chat. I love you, Mom. Shout out to grandparents who are fully accepting of our children. There's a lot of things that I put up, to educate people on our website so that we can lean in and learn and just have that support. Taking care of ourselves. Neda, you're younger in the experience, and I've had to learn the hard way. Now I can, tell my children, guess what, guys, we're all going to take a break. I'm going to have a little time to myself. You're going to have a little time. Let's take a small break. Let's take 15 minutes. I'll set a timer, and then let's come back together. It's important to do that so that I can have a good dinner with you. I want to make you the best dinner ever, because we need to be able to maintain. We need to be able to be present.
Just to join in on this, I find it's easier to talk about taking care of yourself for me than always all the time doing that with, on top of everything else, my daughter and my son-in-law are both entrepreneurs. And so sometimes my son-in-law calls me last 2 days, I just absolutely adore him, and I adore the fact that he will call me up and wants input on his sleeping, sleep apnea and snoring startup. And so I often don't set a limit. I would never set it on him. I have a hell of a hard time setting limits when I want to talk to an entrepreneur. And so I don't sleep. I sleep pretty good. I get my 7 hours, but I will work, and I guess I always often feel behind. But all that said, I love the work, and I do get my time, but it's sometimes it gets compromised.
Absolutely. Well, I feel we could talk for 3 more hours here. There's just so much to share, and the 3 of you have been so wonderful. Please do keep up with the work that all 3 of these panelists are doing. Somebody asked in the chat how we can stay in touch. I am dropping in a link there that will give you more information on the Savants, on Plug and Play, on Multiple, and on our 3 panelists here. But again, I can't thank you all, the panelists, for sharing so deeply with us, and for the audience for being so deeply engaged and sharing with us as well. It really was a special space here for the last hour. So thank you. We hope to stay in touch. Please reach out anytime.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.